Hey, Katie, how are you?
I'm fine. Thanks so much for joining me. And should I call you Mr. Attorney General Josh?
So here's the deal, Katie. I've got four kids. I make them call me General, but you and everyone else should absolutely call me Josh, okay?
Very funny. Well, listen, thanks so much for talking to me. Gosh, I feel like the timing could not have been better because there's just been huge news in Pennsylvania,
Yep.
where a lot of votes from Philadelphia were reported. Were basically now Joe Biden leads by 5,587 votes. The first time he's moved ahead of
Yeah.
Trump. So let's just talk basically about what's going on in your state, Josh. I know you're not the Secretary of State, but
Yeah.
give us an idea of the votes that we're still waiting to come in from the state.
Yeah. So first off, Katie, it's super cool to be with you, and thanks so much for having me. This is a lot of fun. And my coolness factor with my kids went up like just a
Oh,
little bit.
I'm sure they've never even heard of me, Josh, but
Oh, stop it. Of course they have. So here's the deal, right? Pennsylvania is going to set a record in terms of our turnout. In the last presidential election, there were about 6 million votes between Secretary Clinton and Donald Trump. This time, it looks like that number probably exceeds 6.5 million. All of the votes from Election Day, that is, people who showed up on Tuesday, appear to have been counted by each of the 67 counties. And then those 67 counties in Pennsylvania started going through all of the different, mail-in ballots. There were, I don't know, at the end of the day, probably about 2.5 million or so of them. There were a few chunks of those ballots left. There were, until I guess just about a few minutes ago, there were about 50,000 in Philly. That number's probably cut in half. There's maybe another 30,000. I think I said 50,000. I meant 50,000. There's about 30,000 left in Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is, and then probably tens of thousands scattered across Pennsylvania. That counting process will go on for a few more days. But obviously, you can see the trends and the direction where this is going. What I've tried to do, and you're correct, I'm not the Secretary of State, so I don't run the election apparatus. But what I am as the Attorney General is the person in charge of making sure all the laws are followed. And I've said all along, whether Donald Trump is up or Joe Biden is up, we are going to respect the will of the people of Pennsylvania, make sure every ballot is counted. These are legal votes. And we'll do this as long as it takes in order to certify a proper winner.
you've been very consistent, Josh, in saying that over and over again, which your discipline in staying on message has been so important because you have exuded of calm and telling people to be patient. Before you came on, I was talking about the red mirage that a lot
Yeah.
of people predicted because same day voters were predominantly very interesting to see how they broke, how they were divided between people who I think actually there were some obviously that could vote safely and in a socially distant manner,
Yeah.
but a lot of people who took the coronavirus seriously voted by mail. And so if you look at that usually is a pretty, in some cases, a Republican Democratic divide. But before we talk about your main job of making sure that laws have been followed, Josh, I just want to ask you about Allegheny County because the vote in Pittsburgh and the area around Pittsburgh suspended for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I just want you to explain why, if you could,
Yeah.
and why now they're being.
Yeah, absolutely. And Katie, I hope you can hear me okay. There was a little bit of a lag in the video. As long as you have me,
I
your
have
voice.
here.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you were just going in and out a little bit.
Oh,
But
okay.
so here's the deal. And actually, Katie, I mean, I think this is a really great question you're asking, particularly with your, I mean, how giant you are in the media. I think one of the things that has been an unfortunate aspect of this is the media jumps on every little tweet or every little thing and thinks that there's a conspiracy. When in fact, in Allegheny County, there's no conspiracy whatsoever. There's no problem. Here's what actually happened. A court order that came several days, if not maybe a week ago now, my days are all blurred together, said that those ballots, it's about 29,000, Katie, can't start to be counted until today, right? They can't even begin to be open today. Why? Because a couple weeks ago when they were mailed out, some people in Allegheny County got the wrong ballot. Like the address line was slightly off. And so if you lived at 123 Main Street and you might have gotten the one for 124 Main Street, something like that. It was corrected. They went to a judge. They entered into an agreement that they would have this delay in the counting. That's all this is. There's no controversy. There's no problem. Those ballots, my understanding is, are going to go through processing today.
Okay, so when those votes, Josh, from Allegheny County, I know they're outstanding mail-in votes. I hope I'm not breaking much. Mail-in votes from Bucks County, from Delaware County, from Lehigh County,
Yep.
All lean Democratic. When do you think all the voting will be done? And I'm just curious, and this is not a criticism of the hardworking election workers, but I thought you all would be manning the fort 24/7.
Yeah, that is the case in some ways. So, for example, in Philly, they worked overnight last night. That's how that new data was able to be put in first thing this morning, as you just reported a couple minutes ago. Look, there were a lot of challenges in the election apparatus which slowed things down. From my perspective, of course, I want things to be done more quickly. My kids keep yelling at me, "Dad, when's this going to be over?" Right? But the reality is, what we really want is an accurate count, is a fair count, is a count that all the folks can have faith and confidence in, and that's taken a little bit longer. In terms of when it's going to be over, ballots can be received up until 5 p.m. today, so long as the vote occurred and they were postmarked prior to the end of election day. So you'll have a few more trickling in today. That combined with the few backlogs that you talked about in the tens of thousands, hopefully by the end of this weekend, you'll see that mostly cleared out. Again, not the Secretary of State, but that's my best guesstimate. In addition to that, we obviously have to wait for our military and overseas ballots to come in. So, in terms of like a specific number, I would think by next week you'll have that. In terms of like a clearer picture, hopefully by dinner time you'll have a much clearer picture in terms of where it is, whether it continues to go this way for Biden, whether it goes the other way for Trump. I think you'll have a sense of that.
We mentioned these areas, Josh, throughout Pennsylvania that lean heavily Democratic.
Yeah.
Are there mail-in ballots? Are there areas that could actually help President Trump narrow the lead, or even catch up with the
Yeah. You know what, Katie? I'm not a pundit. I think it'd be irresponsible for me in this role to suggest I know. I think there's enough data out there to look at what's happening with these mail-in ballots county by county. And I would say, it's probably best for folks to analyze it that way. My job is just to make sure these ballots are counted, they're tallied properly, and all the laws are followed. And, look, obviously, our laws have been under attack. I mean, primarily from the president. And that's a sad situation we find ourselves in. And so my focus is just making sure the law is followed and these ballots are tallied and people can have confidence in it.
Understood. Respect that a lot. And I want to talk to you about those laws and something like Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz saying last night. But before we do, how many military votes are still to be counted or overseas? Do you have any idea if is that a big
I don't. My sense is, in terms of what's left after today, it would be, a few thousand, not tens of thousands or anything like that.
Okay. And for people who are joining me, talking with the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, who's probably...
And for those of you joining us, I'm talking to Katie Couric, which is super cool. So there you go.
Anyway, let's talk about the election laws and some of the accusations of voter fraud. And this is very, very serious, Josh, as you know, as the number one legal official in the state of Pennsylvania. Last night, I watched Lindsey Graham say Philadelphia, the elections there are crooked as a snake. I guess that's a South Carolina expression, not sure. And Ted Cruz echoing similar sentiments, really focusing on cities like Philadelphia and Detroit, which a lot of people felt were racially tinged remarks about the election officials in those major metropolitan areas. So I would love you to address what they said and some of the accusations, Josh, that they're...
Yeah. So look, Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham and the rest of them who say that are just downright ignorant. And they're lying to you because they're seemingly trying to suck up to the president. I don't know why they want to do that, but that's what they're doing. There is no basis in reality or in the law for anything that Ted Cruz or Lindsey Graham or anybody else are saying about Philadelphia. And it's downright disrespectful. And Katie, it pisses me off when people attack Pennsylvania the way they have. Here's the facts, okay? Because in the law, we deal with facts and evidence. The president, his lawyers, and others have taken to Twitter and taken to other channels to literally lie about fraud, okay? Saying there's all kinds of fraud in Pennsylvania. And what we did was we said, okay, Mr. President, okay, everybody, put up or shut up. Tell us where the fraud is. Because in court, you don't get to tweet. You have to actually have a fact to back up an assertion that you make. And so in court, when they were asked to produce evidence, Katie, this is important, not of actual fraud, but of fraud that could possibly occur, which is a really low bar, Katie, like super low in the law. They couldn't even clear that hurdle. And those cases were dismissed. They lost. So every time they had to go to court and prove fraud, they couldn't. And they still can't. And so what I would say is, to them, the campaign is over. There's no need for rhetoric anymore. We need to take a deep breath. We need to count the votes. We need to follow the law. And certainly, Katie, if there is some kind of widespread fraud, I'll be the first one on it. I don't care who it benefits, who it helps, who it hurts, whatever. If there is fraud, it will be addressed. There's no fraud. What there is right now is seemingly, some dumb comments, ignorant comments by Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz. And by the way, I don't know Ted Cruz, but I'm told he's a smart guy. He's argued before the Supreme Court. That dude should know better. And he should also stay the hell out of Pennsylvania's business because he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I know you have to go in a minute, but I just want to ask you one more question, Josh, about some of the things that Lindsey Graham was accusing the Philadelphia election officials of. He kept saying, we tried to get in there. They barred us from observing. And I just think it's super important, Josh, for people to understand the integrity of the election process, because it's kind of like Greek to a lot of people.
Yeah.
There are Republican observers. There are Democrat and Republican election officials at every polling county.
Yes. Yeah.
So just for the people who are watching this, Josh, can you explain that? Because I think there's so much misinformation out there.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you asked that, because that's one of the things they were saying they couldn't observe. Okay. So first off, that's a lie. They were observing. And in fact, Katie, I think you heard the president say he had a big win in Philadelphia. Okay. And it actually ties into the question you asked. So let me explain it. When these ballots are being counted, candidates and parties are afforded the opportunity under Pennsylvania law to watch the proceedings. Trump campaign had and has observers. I assume the Biden campaign, all the other campaigns do as well, and the parties. They sued in order to do two things: to stop the count and to move their observers closer. The quote unquote big win was not that the stoppage occurred, the ballots kept being counted, but literally their people went from standing 10 feet away from the envelopes being opened to a whopping 6 feet away from the envelopes being opened. Hopefully you hear the sarcasm in my voice coming through on Instagram this morning, right? So, and the only holdup that occurred, Katie, was that because they demanded to move from 10 feet or so to 6 feet, because of COVID, the Department of Health had to adjust the protocols in terms of where people were standing in order to keep people healthy and safe. These wonderful public servants who are counting these ballots, who are doing their part to make sure that we get a fair, accurate, and legal count. That's the big win. I mean, that's it. So the observer...
And the big beef that he said, oh, we can't see on the windows, we can't do this, we don't have access, is just, as Joe Biden would say, malarkey.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really want to get into the politics back and forth on this. I'll just tell you that what they were saying, that they were refused access, is not true. Now, let me be very specific in what I'm saying. if you, Katie, tried to walk in today to watch, you would be refused access. You know why? Because under Pennsylvania law, you have to be certified to be in there. Trump has folks who are certified. Biden has people certified, et cetera, et cetera. However, if you as a concerned citizen wanted to watch, you could go on a live stream that the city of Philadelphia has and watch, as long as you want to watch. Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham could watch if they really wanted to. They really don't want to. They just want to make noise. So the campaign has people embedded there. They're now at 6 feet. They can be at 6 feet instead of 10, right? And people, if they want, they can watch on the live stream. This is being observed. It is under incredible scrutiny. We are following the law. And frankly, instead of attacking these wonderful public servants in our communities and singling out communities like Philadelphia and Detroit, we should be thanking these public servants for doing this great work for us.
Well, let me do that because your team is saying you need to go. I know you've got a lot on your schedule, but I'd like to thank the public servants of Philadelphia and the state of Pennsylvania, and in fact, all over the country for doing this and for helping with our election process. And I'd also like to say thank you for being a calm, steady voice of reason since Tuesday, and a very a pressure cooker time when the president of the United States is waging war against public servants like you.
Yeah.
That's a very comfortable place to be. So thank you for your steadfastness and your public service as well. And I hope you get some sleep at some point.
We'll get there in a few days. It's fine.
I really, really appreciate your talking to us this morning. I feel very honored because I think this is your first interview after the count came out, right?
I guess so. Yep. First Instagram Live. And it's really cool to be with you, Katie. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thanks, Josh. And thanks everyone for watching. If you guys like what you see, subscribe right here.